You are going to make money mistakes in your 20s. That part's not optional. What's optional is spending the next decade repeating the same 8 because nobody ever told you what they actually look like from the inside. Not the coffee. Not the avocado toast. Bigger than that. Structural. Here are the 8 that cost the most time to unlearn. You think a bigger paycheck fixes the problem. Money solves problems right up until it doesn't, and then it just sits there, and you keep chasing it anyway. Here's what you're actually doing. You assume the next raise changes the mood in the room. More income, less stress, better relationships, calmer Sundays. You treat the number in your account like it's load-bearing for your entire life. The mechanic is simple. Going from $50,000 a year to $500,000 changes almost everything. Housing, healthcare, options, sleep. Going from $1 million to $1,050,000 changes almost nothing. Same 50 grand, wildly different impact, depending entirely on where you're starting from. Here's the part nobody mentions. The obsession doesn't stop when the problem it was solving disappears. People who needed money to escape scarcity keep grinding at the same intensity long after scarcity is gone, because the behavior became the identity. Not everybody, but you know the one friend who's always working, and you know exactly what they're missing. This week, before you chase the next raise, name the actual problem it's supposed to fix. If you can't name one, the raise is decoration, not repair. The mistake, assuming more money keeps paying off at the same rate. The fix. Ask what specific problem this next dollar is actually solving. You made up your number, and it's wrong. Everyone your age has a number in their head. $300,000? $500,000? When I hit 7 figures, I'll relax. And almost none of you have ever checked it against anything real. You picked that number the way you picked a favorite band in high school. It sounded right. Other people had similar ones, and you never revisited it. It's not a calculation, it's a vibe wearing a dollar sign. Here's the mechanic. Sit down and price your actual ideal month. Rent, food, one line for travel, one for the stuff you'd buy just because you wanted to. Say that comes to $6,000 a month after tax. Work backward through taxes and savings, and that's roughly $150,000 a year pre-tax. Not $300,000. Not 7 figures, a number you can check against a job posting. Now flip it. Most people who do this exercise land 30 to 50% below their imagined number. The gap isn't optimism. It's math you never ran. Do the worksheet this week. One afternoon. Every category, every dollar, pre-tax at the end. The mistake? Chasing a number you never calculated. The fix? Price your actual life once in writing before you chase anything. You're getting rich by the hour, which means you're not. There's a ceiling built into every job that pays you for your time, and you've been ignoring it because the ceiling is high enough to feel infinite. Here's what you're doing. Measuring your progress in raises and hourly rates, the same lever pulled harder every year. A lawyer billing $400 an hour still has 24 hours in a day, and a body that needs 8 of them for sleep. The income is capped by the clock, full stop. The mechanic. Income tied to your time tops out. Income tied to an asset doesn't. A rental property, a slice of a business, a dividend stream. None of it asks how many hours you worked this week. It pays whether you showed up or not. Here's the turn. This isn't an argument to quit your job. It's an argument that your job should fund a second thing that doesn't need you personally present to keep earning. Most people never build the second thing because the first one already exhausts every hour they have. Pick 1 hour a week, not more, and point it at something that isn't billed by the hour. A small investment, a skill you can license, anything untethered from your calendar. The mistake: measuring wealth by what your hours are worth. The fix: build one income source that doesn't need your hours at all. You want the result before you've paid the entry fee. Everything that compounds needs a runway, and you keep judging the runway like it's the destination. This is the part you already know, but don't act on. You start something, check the results at 30 days, see nothing, and conclude it doesn't work. A side hustle takes 6 to 12 months to find traction. Most investments show almost nothing for years before the curve bends. You've been trained by a feed full of 30-day success stories to expect a timeline that basically never happens. Here's the mechanic with a number. Someone drop shipping a product might make real cash in month 1 and lose the entire model in month 6 because there was never a brand under it, just a margin. Someone who gave the same idea a 3-year horizon might build a sourcing relationship, an actual product, something with a moat. Same starting idea, different clock. Now flip it. A short time horizon doesn't just slow you down. It actively makes you choose worse options, because you're optimizing for what shows results fast instead of what lasts. Pick one thing you started and almost quit. Give it a real horizon, a year, not a month, before you decide it failed. The mistake: judging every effort against a 30-day clock. The fix: set the actual time horizon before you start and don't relitigate it early. You're optimizing the $4 coffee and ignoring the $4,000 decision. Cutting expenses has a floor. Increasing income doesn't. You've been told to fight the floor. Here's your actual behavior. You cancel a subscription, skip the coffee, feel virtuous, and the math barely moves, because on $50,000 a year, frugality can only rearrange a small pie. The $4 coffee, invested for 40 years, does eventually turn into real money, but it was never the lever with the most torque. The mechanic: would you care about that same $4 if your income were $500,000 instead of $50,000? Almost certainly not. The advice to cut small spending is really advice to stop bleeding money carelessly. A floor, not a strategy. Here's the turn, and it's the same problem as Rule 2 wearing different clothes. You calculated a fake ceiling for your spending dreams, and now you're fighting a fake floor on your expenses, when the actual lever the whole time was the number in between. What you earn. This week, spend 15 minutes on one income lever, asking for the role, the client, the skill, instead of another hour auditing subscriptions. The mistake: fighting your expenses instead of your income. The fix: put your effort into the lever with no ceiling, not the one with a floor. You check your money once, then hope. Once a month is not a check-in. It's a monthly surprise scheduled in advance. Here's what you're actually doing. You look at your accounts on payday, feel either relief or dread, and then go dark for 30 days. Whatever happens in between, the bill you forgot, the week you overspent, you find out about it after it's already too late to change anything. The mechanic: a mid-month check simply doubles your visibility. Look at your spending on the 15th, compare it to where you expected to be, and adjust the second half of the month instead of the next one. It's the difference between correcting a course and reviewing an autopsy. Here's the turn nobody says out loud. Silence isn't good news. No news usually just means you weren't looking, and the bill still came due whether you checked or not. This is exactly the blind spot I built Money Flow to close. It logs spending in 2 taps and flags an estimate the second a number's still unconfirmed. So, I think I'm fine turns into an actual figure instead of a guess. Links below if that's useful. Put one recurring check-in on your calendar mid-cycle. Not payday, the middle. The mistake? Checking your money once a month and hoping the gaps stay empty. The fix? Add one mid-cycle check-in and close the visibility gap before it closes on you. You waited for extra money that was never going to show up. There is no leftover, there's only what you decided to protect before everything else got a chance to spend it. Here's your pattern. Paycheck arrives, bills get paid, discretionary spending happens, and whatever's left, if anything, gets called savings. That's not a system, that's whatever survives. The mechanic. Set an automatic transfer the day you get paid. Out of $1,000 a week, $200 moves to savings before you see the rest. By month's end, that's $800 you never had the chance to spend, because you never saw it as spendable in the first place. This is the same problem as the mid-month check-in, aimed earlier in the process. Both are about removing the moment where willpower is required. The check-in catches you mid-month. This one removes the decision entirely on day 1. Here's the turn. Paying yourself first sounds like a slogan, but it's really just sequencing. Nothing about the amount changes, only the order does. And order is the entire trick. Set up one automatic transfer this week, timed to your actual payday, not the first of the month. The mistake? Saving whatever's left after everything else gets paid. The fix? Automate the savings transfer before you ever see the rest of the money. You bought it today and let next month find out. Every purchase you make is quietly more expensive than the price tag, and you've been doing the math with the wrong number the whole time. Here's what you're actually doing. You see $500 on a price tag and think that's the cost. It isn't. On a $50,000 salary, taxed at roughly 27%, that $500 item took about $684 of pre-tax income to afford. Money you had to earn before the government took its share, not after. The mechanic, as a rule of thumb, if you can't comfortably buy the same item twice over, you probably can't afford it once. It's not about the necessities, it's about the wallet on the rack that feels earned after a good month. Here's the turn. This quietly connects to Rule 1. You chased the bigger number assuming it would buy you more, but almost everything you buy with it is priced in after-tax dollars against a number that was never actually yours in the first place. Before the next non-essential purchase over some threshold you pick, run the pre-tax math once. Just once. See if it still feels like a good idea. The mistake. Pricing purchases in take-home dollars instead of what you actually earned to afford them. The fix. Run the pre-tax math before the big ones, every time. You've been tracking the wrong number your entire 20s. Every mistake on this list is really one mistake. Wearing 8 different outfits. You've been optimizing income and spending instead of the number that actually moves. What's left when you subtract one from the other? You wanted a bigger paycheck. You made up a number to chase. You capped your income by the hour. You gave up before the runway paid off. You fought your expenses instead of your income. You checked once a month and called it visibility. You waited for leftovers that never came. You priced things in the wrong dollars. None of those are about income in isolation. None of them are about spending in isolation either. They're all about the same single figure: assets minus debt. And almost nobody in their 20s is watching that number at all. You're watching your paycheck. You're watching your bank balance the day after rent clears. You are not watching the one number that actually tells you whether this year made you richer or just louder. Here's the actual trick. Income is the volume. Net worth is the signal. Turn down the volume, watch the signal, and every mistake on this list gets a lot harder to make twice. The mistake: treating income as the scoreboard. The fix: track what's left, not what came in. 8 mistakes, 1 shape. Bigger paycheck as the fix. A made-up number. Income capped by the hour. Quitting before the runway pays off. Fighting expenses instead of income. Checking in once and hoping. Waiting on leftovers. Pricing purchases in the wrong dollars. All of it circling back to the one number that actually counts. Fix the visibility problem, and most of these fix themselves. If you want the 2-tap version of that mid-month check-in, Money Flow's built around exactly that. Links below.